whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Pick'em. We're going into week 2. We had a great guest last week in John Ryan. And this week, we have another great guest. He is a host of the Rude Dog Show. You've seen us together on John Ryan's show. And, of course, joining us from KMPH Fox 26, the one and only Rudy Reyes. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good, Bo. Thanks for having me on, man. I certainly appreciate it. And thank you for all the likes and the love yesterday on my birthday. So I definitely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And, it's already second week of the season, which is awesome. Felt like the off season took a really long time. So some of that I think is because I'm a Seahawks fan and we had so many changes. I wanted to see some of these things hit the field. And, obviously we got to see that in week 1. It was not the best first half, a lot of bad football as far as offensive line play, stuff like that. And it was something that we were talking a little bit about before the show in the lack of contact in preseason play, leading to some kind of bad football to start the year.
Yeah, it was really surprising. I mean, you look at Deshaun Watson, and he just basically wet the bed. It was absolutely horrible. I mean, you would think during the offseason with all the money that Jim Haslam had thrown at him, thinking maybe he's going to be the starting QB. I'll be honest with you, when I look at the numbers and the errant throws and the lack of awareness of what the check down markers are and the players, and he threw the ball over the heads of receivers, you would think he had enough time to prepare. I'd be screaming for another quarterback, and of course, that is not the current quarterback in Deshaun Watson. I would look for Jameis Winston to start this, but they're invested. They're in this mix, so they've invested all this money looking for better output from Deshaun Watson. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Cleveland is in trouble, and in trouble deep, to be perfectly honest with you. Not quoting Madonna or anything, but it does sound. Maybe a pre-Madonna, perhaps, for Deshaun Watson. I don't know. Depends on who you ask. But you're talking about horrible offensive line play. I mean, you couldn't get any worse than some of these teams who went into week 1 thinking, we got this. New York, the Jets, absolutely was a dumpster fire heading into San Francisco because, why? Well, the 49ers, Brock Purdy, Fred Warner. I mean, the list goes on and on. George Kittle, but no CMC. And you've seen an up-and-coming RB who just basically lit up the screen with a touchdown. I mean, the guy's nimble, fast, understands the blocking scheme. Just a lot of good football from the 49ers, just very poor football. And, of course, it taken Tyrod Taylor to get in the second half, or at least the fourth quarter, rather, and seeing Aaron Rodgers sit on the sidelines and watch him go down and score with ease. And he's not on a flying trapeze. I mean, there's just so many things to dislike about some of this hype that broadband media wants to throw out there, saying, well, Cleveland Browns are going to go to the Super Bowl. Well, they've been saying that for years already. And they were clearly closer last year, if you remember correctly, with Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year. They had pass rushing. I mean, it was all clicking. They had Joe Flacco. Of course, Joe Flacco decided to show who Joe Flacco really was, and that's the interception king.
Yeah. Even before that point, it's not like he was playing exceedingly well, right? He was putting up yards, but his touchdown to interception rate was not great.
Right. That's exactly what you looked at. You looked at completions downfield. Was it double coverage? Was it single coverage? Could he take advantage of shorter cornerbacks with better wide receiver play? Slot wideouts, tight ends, bunch formations. There was just a lot of miscues watching the Browns play against the Cowboys, who, quite frankly, Dak Prescott, received one of a lifetime NFL renewal contract from Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. I was at Dallas Cowboys training camp last year. Not that I'm not a fan of Dak Prescott. I'm just really not a fan of Dak Prescott. But when it's all said and done, he's again another guy who got paid well. Other guys getting paid well that did not perform. Trevor Lawrence in the Jacksonville Jaguars system with Omar Khan, now a guy who's just been throwing money at everything, expecting better results. You see Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers now in year 2. he did not look very good. I mean, the Panthers just did not look good at all. Then you get rid of Brian Burns on the other side of the ball, one of your defensive pieces that has just been an absolute beast for you up to this point.
The Panthers need a lot of help. I mean, they're way further than a Bryce Young piece away. Like they are 50 guys away from having a good 53-man roster.
It's going to take a lot longer than 50 days, maybe 50 months, maybe 5 years, to really get this Carolina Panthers team right. And again, one of those things where rookie season 2, you're looking more, at him for more production, better coverage reads, again, check down throws, get out of the pocket, scramble on the run, trying to make things, happen on your feet when the pocket breaks down on you. It just looked like the Panthers going into year 2, following up after year 1, same, but the opposite is true of the Cleveland Browns, who looked really good last year, but then are absolutely atrocious this year. 49ers picked up kind of where they left off, to be honest with you, even without CMC, just had taken care of the Jets very, very handily. There's so much, and you mentioned horrible line play. That goes without saying. Yes, New England won, but they're going to have to put up more than 17 points in order to beat the Seahawks. Let's just be honest. I mean, they're going to have to do a lot more than that. Am I sold on the starting quarterback for Seattle? No, not really. I'm still.
So, I guess the argument there, right? Obviously last year didn't look great, but their offensive line was absolutely destroyed. And when you look at teams that had bad offensive lines, as far as injuries, you look at the year prior to that with the Rams and the Cardinals, both of those guys have what's listed as franchise guys. And they were both bad and ultimately both got hurt, right? Bad offensive line play you can have the best quarterbacks and still have it not work out. But if you look at the year prior to that with Geno, he set the single season passing record for Seattle. It was a top 5 scoring offense until the very end of the season when he ended up getting hurt. So when you look at that, most of that nucleus is still there. Now, they moved a bunch of pieces in where we thought that offensive line was going to look a lot better, and it sure didn't the first half of week 1. But, all things being equal, it was week 1.
It was week 1. And for those teams that are currently in trouble, I don't think Seattle is in trouble of losing within the NFC West. I think there's a lot of questions that they have to answer, going into week 2 against New England. They still haven't kind of settled in, even with Jacoby Brissett, who's been all over. He's like the Ryan Fitzpatrick of the NFL now. How many teams has he been on? Tyrod Taylor, how many teams has he been on? I think when you look at the Patriots and the offensive line, the jury's still out. I'm not a fan of Jacoby. I'm better off with Jacoby and Myers than Jacoby Brissett to really save my hide if I was a betting guy or if I even played fantasy for that matter. But I'm too busy with reality for that. I think New England can find themselves with better offensive line play, better quarterback play. Jacoby needs to take advantage of deep threat opportunities that the secondary for Seattle may allow for him to have. It just depends on the scheme and if they could take advantage of New England in short yardage situations and to be able to get in the end zone when the situation calls for it, or maybe just punch it in, right? We've seen the Super Bowl with Seahawks against the New England Patriots where Seattle deviated away from running the ball. Instead, they threw it, and it was an interception, which cost the Seattle Seahawks a Super Bowl. So,
on that though, it actually wasn't a bad call. You don't go into it thinking that's going to be an interception, right? Because it's second down, you have one timeout, right? So to be able to use all of your plays, you had to have a pass play in there at some point, right? Now, that may be one of the worst executed slant routes I've ever seen. Also a phenomenal defensive play. But But at the end of the day, you're thinking a slant is one of the safest routes you can run. Best, worst case scenario in your mind when you draw the thing up is an incomplete pass, right?
Right.
So then you had one timeout. So, whether it was on second down or third down, one of them had to be a pass play. And then, that way you still had 4 downs to try and punch it in.
Sure, but they had ran running plays of all different sizes, switching personnel, things of that nature, to get them to where they were at near the
No,
goal line to score that game-winning touchdown.
no,
So you
exactly. I'm not
deviate,
arguing that.
you deviate from what they're doing, from what got you there, right? We see this all the time, whether it's in the NBA or the NFL or
Sure.
MLB. You deviate from what helped get you there, and all of a sudden now you're wondering, well, what do we do wrong? Well, you should have been running the ball because they couldn't stop the run on the whole progressive play motion, right from the 30-yard line, not the dynamic kickoff, but the 30-yard line, I think it was, and then they just head on down the field, and you just keep punching it in. But with that being said, this is going to be I don't want to say a rematch. You have different head coaches, you have different players and
Oh, it's
personnel.
all wildly different.
But yeah, it's extremely different. But I think that unless Seattle can stop them on third and shorts, if they can provide better coverage down the field, defensively in the secondary, you're going to be able to stop New England and stymie that passing attack. Again, on the other side for New England, they need to figure out offensively, hey, what are we going to run? What is the situation? How are we going to capitalize on short yardage? And also, what's the completion to turnover ratio? Are we going to play it on the safe side? Are we going to live in our fears, or are we going to go down the field and make something happen? So there's a lot on the line for both of these teams, still 1-0 in their respective divisions. And of course, when we look at, again, offensive line play, I want to point out the Cincinnati Bengals. Why? Because they were absolutely horrible. They were just horrible. And you thought to yourself, man, you have Joe Burrow, and then you have, your wide receivers and T. Higgins, and, you don't have really much of a running game since you gave up Mixon. So now you're relying on an RB by committee.
They don't play defense at all. So, I mean,
No.
Cincinnati and the Dolphins, similarly, you could even say the same for the Jags. They all play a brand where they have to outrun you to win because they don't play good defense typically. And, I guess the biggest issue with Burrow is they seem to start slow every year, right? Like they seem to rattle off a few losses to start the season every year. And, in theory, he should be healthy this year because he's only healthy every other year. So this should be the year he's healthy, although we did see him, kind of rolling the wrist around during the game. So who knows if he's perfectly healthy or not.
Well, good luck with that against the Kansas City Chiefs, who won their opener at home with a banner, and they're playing another game against the Cincinnati Bengals. The last time they played was what? In the AFC Championship game. And so just a couple of years ago, right? So the advantage for Cincinnati is to be able to stop the Chiefs. Good luck with that. And stop Patrick Mahomes by applying pressure on every single given down. We're talking design blitzes, delayed blitzes. You have to have a QB spy. If you don't QB spy him throughout the entire game, he will rob you of more than 10 to 15 yards per play in the center of the field. He will destroy you and pick you apart. That's just his MO. That's just who Patrick Mahomes is. You would think other teams with the Super Bowls they've won back-to-back and now headed for a third potentially, that there's some type of method to the madness of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, first-year player who was super dynamic in opening week. And, for all intents and purposes, playing at the former Arrowhead Stadium against Kansas City, defending Super Bowl champions. Good luck, Cincinnati, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's a Kansas City team that actually managed to get better this offseason. And I mean, their defense isn't going to be quite as dynamic as it was last year, but their offense is a whole lot better. And, they got rid of guys that were dropping footballs for speed and guys that can catch. So this is a team that definitely has a shot to three-peat. I don't think they do it. I lean on history for that, especially because of the way the playoffs are designed in football. You're one and done, right? You only have to have one bad day and it's over. So can they do it? Sure, they have the opportunity. Do I think they do? Probably not. Do I think they win this weekend? Absolutely. That being said, just going over last week real quick. So ended up going 13-3 on my picks. The one that I did get wrong kicked the season off. I had the Ravens. I thought they were going to upset KC. And It was another scenario that was very weird from the Ravens that we saw in postseason play last year, where they forgot that they had a running back. And it didn't make any sense because I don't know how you miss Derrick Henry on a roster spot because that guy is a mountain of a human. But they only gave him, I think it was like 13 carries for the day. That makes absolutely no sense. When that opening drive, they run right down the field, punch it in, and then they're just like, we're bored with running, and just stopped. None of it made sense to me, but I caught an L on that one. The next loss that I had was I took the Falcons over the Steelers. I did not see that level of play out of Cousins. The Steelers win without any offensive firepower at all. Their defense won them that game. So I caught an L on the Falcons. And then the last one that I got is I did take the Bengals over the Pats because the Pats are going to be a bad team. And but apparently they weren't on week one because the Bengals found a way to lose that. So those were my three losses. But man, so now we look at tonight, right? We got the Bills at the Dolphins. It doesn't get much more of a coin flip than what this game is going to be. The line on it right now is the Dolphins at home are 2.5-point favorites, over under a 49. The Bills are third as far as CBS's power rankings. Dolphins are 10th. I do like the Dolphins here at home, though.
The Dolphins are usually play good at home. They played very well last year at home. I don't recall their home versus away record, but historically they've actually played really good at home. Don't put them in cold weather situations because as well as I do, Tua does not perform well with icicles hanging from his chin and a big block of ice for a hand with a football in it. So, he's a fair weather player. He played that way in college. Their defense looks pretty good. I question Tua going into, what is this, year 4, year 5 for Tua Tagovailoa?
It's year 2 if we're talking healthy.
Okay, well, yeah, okay. If you're healthy, it's year 2. He's not a rookie anymore, and he's had the ability to get that ball downfield. Of course, everybody knows about the Tyreek Hill incident. I had a chance to watch the video cam like everybody else did.
Sure.
That's another time, another show for that time. But I think the Miami Dolphins win this one at home for a couple of reasons. Last time these two teams face off, obviously they're conference rivals. So in the AFC East, they play themselves at least twice a year, like every other team within their respective division. I just think that the Bills and Josh Allen will end up missing Stephon Diggs more than they know, despite Josh Allen being able to run out of the pocket. And to your point about Lamar Jackson, Lamar said, I'm going to do it myself. Why? Because offensive line play was not very good.
Exactly.
And I don't know exactly how the Bills are going to get it done with their offensive line, who looked relatively okay for the most part in their win last week. But I think the Dolphins just played too well at home, too much offense. They're going to take advantage of a secondary that did not do as good of a job as he probably could have in week 1. And I'm taking the Dolphins at home. That's my first pick of them for the week.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we move into the Sunday games. We got the Raiders at the Ravens. This is a 30th ranked team versus 7th ranked team. The Ravens are 8.5-point favorites, over under 41.5. 8.5 may not even be enough of a spread. I would actually take the Ravens to cover. I'd probably take the over because this is going to be a Ravens team that's mad. And let's be honest, his Raiders team is not good.
No, it's not good at all. And again, the quarterback by committee. Yeah, you have Minshew. I don't know how magical that was. Last wasn't actually quite magical at all. In fact, you find more magic at Disneyland. But Gardner Minshew, one of those guys where I think it's a lot more hype. Offensive line play, again, not very good last week in that loss. It was a very chippy loss, I must say. Some penalties and some money being thrown the NFL's direction because of.
To be fair, that's Raiders football.
I suppose so. I haven't seen a brawl like that since the Steelers and Browns with a player getting hit with the helmet named Mason Rudolph by Myles Garrett. So, it's anybody's crapshoot. But yes, the Ravens are extremely mad. They better come up with a much better scheme And if you're going to do a heavy dose of running, you don't put Lamar Jackson in harm's way. He needs to stop doing that. You need to put Derrick Henry in on any given downs. Put him in the flat, for crying out loud. You do something different, more dynamic. I think when I remember watching him with the Tennessee Titans, there were so many things to like about him from outside of the pocket. Now, again, it's all about offensive line play. You got to stay with your gaps. You have to have gap integrity. You got to spread guys out. You've got to be able to creep that ball through those cracks and crevices, and that's where Derrick Henry lives. Yeah, you can stick him in the flat, but that's where he lives in between the hash. So in order for the Ravens to have and I'm not going to say a chance, but if that betting line was any larger than 10, I would definitely take it because the Ravens are going to come in screaming mad, and they're going to take this win against the former Oakland Raiders, now Las Vegas, which basically to me is just the Raiders in a different city with still a losing record.
Exactly. So this one should be an easy pick, and it's too early in the season for any teams to be overlooking a team yet. This is the Chargers going into Carolina. It is the 11th ranked team versus the 32nd ranked team. And, let's be honest, 32nd may still be too high of a ranking for them. I am positive that there are some like arena teams that could take this Panthers team down. But weirdly, the Chargers are only a 6-point favorite in this, and over under a 39. Now, I'm sure some of that is because it's a road game. Had this been at home, it probably would have been a 9-point, maybe a 10-point favorite for the Chargers. Obviously, I take the Chargers on the road here. Whatever week the Panthers finally win a game will be the week that I'm wrong, because it's going to be really hard to want to pick the Panthers in any game.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough at this point. They're going to really have to correct those wrongs and make those rights, because if I'm a betting man, I would not pick the Panthers against the LA Chargers ever for a lot of good reasons. And one of those is Justin Herbert. They got rid of some pieces in Austin Eckler and, wide receiver. They're in different places, different faces, and that's kind of how that works. But the Chargers historically have just taken care of teams very handily 0-1, whether they're on the road or they're at home. Jim Harbaugh did an absolutely fabulous job managing Justin Herbert's expectations, managed his quarterback play and the types of plays. We've seen it happen with J.J. McCarthy last year when the Michigan Go Blue Wolverines decided to win the Natty. And so he managed that correctly. And I think he's doing the same thing with Justin Herbert, whereas past coaches or the one coach that clearly should have not been a football coach was not able to handle, and that is to manage Justin Herbert and the expectations and be able to come up with a solid game plan for him. So clearly and obviously, I'm taking the Chargers here.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's funny is Staley did so much wrong. I mean, even when Herbert was averaging almost 400 yards a game, they were finding ways to lose. It was phenomenal that he stayed coach as long as he did. So we also in the early block, we have the Saints at the Cowboys. There's zero chance we're going to see the firepower that we saw week 1 out of the Saints. Cowboys are favored at home by 6.5, over under 46.5. And let's be honest, the Cowboys probably steamroll the Saints here. I would bet that they are a 7-point favorite. So I would take the points here. The biggest thing is this is the time of year the Cowboys actually play good football. And, if this game was happening in November, late November, or any of December, certainly in January, I got to rethink my pick. But being week 2, Cowboys tend to win games right now. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys here. And I'll take those points.
Yeah, I hate to sound like the Pete and Repeat show, but I'll be honest with you. I look at Dak Prescott. That contract, as I stated earlier, is weighing heavy on his shoulders. But when you perform, it's of no consequence. When you underperform, it becomes a huge weight on your shoulders and turns into bricks when someone throws you in the Hudson. And this is not that case. This is not that reason. This is a season where the Cowboys, I think, get it right and could even make believers out of people headed into November. Saying.
Let's pump the brakes.
I'm just saying, okay, history is not on the side of where the Cowboys actually win in November. However, because they went 9-5. They had a stretch where they were really on fire. They were playing solid ball. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, you got Michael Parsons on the other side. You have new, young, upcoming talent, guys who can really get to the quarterback. But then the Saints, man, as much as I want to believe in Derek Carr, who, by the way, is from the Central Valley and graduated from Fresno State, I'm still not convinced. Yeah, they had a win, but against an inferior team in week 1. Let's just call it what it is. But this is going to go down to the wire, I believe. I'm still taking the Cowboys, but it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be an honest to God shootout, and I think that the Cowboys end up taking it off a 3-point win to win it at home.
The thing that's funny is I actually like the Saints roster. Like, they should be so much better than they are. When you watched them last year, going into the season, I thought for sure they were just going to walk away with that division because the division wasn't good. And when you look at their roster and what they have, you're just like, oh yeah, this team obviously should win. And then you watch the product on the field and you're just like, I don't understand how you're making these good players play bad.
They play bad because of poor play calling. You have to understand who these guys are. You have to understand that what they're athletically capable of. And unless you understand that, you're really not going to get to the point where, wow, you know what, we're going to put something this direction and we're going to make sure it works. Well, wait a minute. Let's understand that we have a corner that's maybe 5'8" on a good day and 5'9", 5'10" on every other day. So let's not put him in that situation, right? So
he's got lips and issues.
Yeah, exactly. He has a shoe that has a thicker sole than the other. I mean, look, bottom line is that Mickey Loomis knows how to get it done contractually in the offseason. He's done it for years. He knows how to get under the cap and stay under the cap. He's just a mastermind. He does great with numbers. The problem is that the Saints always seem to show their true colors, and they should be better, but they're not going to be. And again, one of those things where they're going to find themselves at barely above 500 in a sink or swim situation come wild card time.
Absolutely. So then we move into Bucks at the Lions. Now the Bucks looked good in week 1. That is not going to be the case this weekend. They are 7.5-point dogs, actually. So I kind of don't love that line. I'll take the Lions to win, but the Bucks might cover that line. Over under a 51.5. So they do think that quite a few points are going to be scored. This is a 9th ranked team versus a 4th ranked team. I do have the Lions at home, but 7.5, it's that 0.5 that kills it for me. I think the Bucks find a way to cover the spread. And that's just Baker being Baker, right? Like he finds a way to wreck those lines sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And one of those things, I mean, he has weapons around him. He has Godwin, he has Mike Evans. He has a trio of wide receivers, not to mention that ferocious defense who helped get that win in week 1 against the Lions team. At times were a little bit questionable, I'll be honest with you. And you had a couple ankle injuries and some minor stuff, nothing that's going to prevent anybody from being able to play. But to the extent without an injury, well, that remains to be seen. Jared Goff is the real deal. I don't think anybody is really giving him the kind of props that he deserves, because he's done so much since being exported, or I should say exiled, from the LA Rams. Now that he finds himself against the Lions, who basically ran over their week 1 opponent. I mean, the Lions are who they are, and one key reason, it's called Dan Campbell. That's who, and that's why. That's why they continue playing with a very ferocious, not to say that they're the Lions because they're ferocious, but because defense wins championships. You mentioned Steelers against the Falcons. Very prime example of what the defense can do for you, as long as you have a kicker on the other side of the ball that can continue kicking and making it good every single time it leaves his foot. So the Lions, this is, and you mentioned the Buccaneer line. They're going to cover it. I'm pretty confident of that, because of the offense around them. But I think the defense for the Detroit Lions is playing with their hair on fire right now. I'm picking the Lions in at least a touchdown or more against the Buccaneers at home.
Yeah, well, and so that's why that line is hard, because it's the 0.5, right? It's 7.5. If it was 7, I'd actually just take the line, right? I'd be like, okay, yeah, they hit 7, but it's 7.5. because it could very easily be either a touchdown or 2 field goals that they win by. And of course, then you're on the under, right? And so yeah, that 7.5, that's a tough line against a Bucks team that's scrappy, right? So, but yeah, I do like the Lions there straight up. All right. So then we have the Colts at the Packers, no Jordan Love. So this definitely, like, it was going to be close anyway, but I'm going to take the Colts here without Jordan Love. They got Malik Willis as their backup. I don't believe that's going to be the recipe for the win. So I'm going to go with the Colts. The Colts are favored on the road by 2.5, over under 41, which just means they don't think the Packers are going to score that much. So I tend to agree with that. I have the Colts winning and, covering the 2.5. I figure it'll be a field goal.
Yeah, I'd say the Colts at least with a touchdown for a couple of reasons. Anthony Richardson has played very little NFL football. Let's just call it what it is. Malik Willis on the other side of the ball has played even less football, and the football that he has played was not very good with Tennessee. And look, this is not the battle of the offensive lines. Both these guys are relatively mobile. Anthony Richardson more so mobile, and that's one of the reasons why he got injured last year, and that's what sat him out for the remainder of the season. Whereas you look at Malik Willis, who has committed more turnovers than he has completion. So a lot to be said for a very desirable offense to get a better quarterback in there, but you're stuck with your 53. They're not going to call Joe Flacco, and they're not going to call somebody on their couch eating bonbons to say, come back into the NFL and play for us, because there is nobody. Joe Flacco is done. So the Colts with Anthony Richardson, now part deux, gets an opportunity to right the wrongs and be able to get a win. And I think the Colts will do it, whether they're playing at Lambeau or not. It's different if it's winter, but it's not winter, it's fall in Green Bay. And I think the Colts will end up winning this at least by 7.
Okay. All right. I like that. All right, we got the Browns at the Jags. The Jags are a 3-point favorite at home, which means Vegas doesn't really know. Over under a 41.5. 21st team versus 17th team, respectively. I don't believe in the Browns at all. And although I don't like the fact that Jags don't play defense, I think Trevor Lawrence and company can get enough done to beat a Browns team that can't seem to move the football. So I'm going to take the Jags here at a -3. I think that will be about what it'll be, is a field goal, might even be a last-minute field goal. But I think the Jags get it done at home against a Browns team that just find ways to lose games.
Yeah, I hate to do this. I hate to do this because, look, when you look at Cleveland, you think to yourself, there's a bunch of hype surrounding them, and they're supposed to be this AFC, dominant team, blah, blah, blah. It's just old. It's old news, and it's a newspaper that you end up letting your dog chew up, and the dog ends up being the dog pound. So, naughty dog. And I think the Jaguars, the battle between cats and dogs, if you will. And I think the Cats win here. Why? Because they've put up maybe enough offense to offset the horrible gameplay of the defense. And even continuing from maybe the last game of last year. So we'll see. We'll see if Trevor Lawrence can do something with all that money he's being paid and actually throw something in somebody's hands and makes it stick without the stickum in the wide receiver's glove. So Jaguars will pull off the win here. I think. Look, the way that I see this is that it's going to be a low-scoring game. Why? Because neither offense can get their act together. But I think the Jaguars will have enough. There will be a touchdown in this game. I guarantee it. And it may be the Jaguars.
Defense.
It could be the Jaguars defense as well. If they find a way to be greedy, if they want to get up in the QB's face and put their hands up, you never know what could happen. So I'm picking the Jaguars at least 7, maybe a field goal in this one. I just don't know if the Browns have enough on either side of the ball. And one person a team does not make, and that's Myles Garrett. And defensively, I just don't think they're going to be able to put enough pressure on Trevor Lawrence early and often to prevent him from scoring that touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, he does have to shy away from some of the Trevor Lawrence unassisted fumbles, though. If he has one of those games, you never know. It can go either way. But as long as he can be smart with the football, hold on to it, yeah, the Jags should be able to cruise on this a little bit. Okay, we got the Niners at the Vikings. This will be a fun game, I think. The Niners are a 5.5-point favorite on the road, listed as the second best team versus the 18th best team, over under 45.5. And so obviously the Niners look like they did not skip a beat, even without CMC. Their, second year running back popping in just absolutely lit it up, right? Made that Jets defense look like they had never played football before. So I do think that the Niners get this done, and 5.5 is probably too low. Like I would take the Niners to easily cover this. That being said, Sam Darnold, I think, is going to be able to do something with this team, right? Like they're going to be another one of those scrappy teams that's going to act as they're going to steal some games from teams. Right. And this won't be that one. But I do think moving forward down as the year goes on, they're going to surprise some teams.
Yeah, very interesting point. And Sam Darnold, not quite a revenge game for Sam Darnold because he played relatively well in the San Francisco 49ers system. So he's familiar with it, and I'm familiar with Sam Darnold. And one thing I know about Sam Darnold before he graduated from SC is that he is a fighter, and he's a scrapper, and he knows how to get it done. And as much as I'd like to think that he'll be able to do so much more and have the available weaponry that the Vikings have, I'm going to err on the side of not going to happen because the 49ers just look too good, too early, too often, way too much offense. They're going to overwhelm this defense early and often on any given down. You have George Kittle. You have maybe CMC makes a run. We'll see if his if that injury comes, to a screeching halt.
What I was reading on CMC is he might be done until week 6 because the calf injury has kind of turned into some Achilles tendonitis. And if that's the case, then they will IR him. And based on the level of play we saw out of their backup running back, they're not going to try and rush him back. But that being said, to your point, right, they have Kittle, they got Debo, they got Ayuk, obviously the new running back that lit it up. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many weapons.
Yeah, there's just too much, too often, and they're going to get a jump start on them too early. And unfortunately, the Vikings are going to have to maybe shine up that horn a little bit more to make it just that much louder to get their team into rally mode to beat the 49ers, but it's not going to be that day. So I'm taking the 49ers at least by 2 full scores of 7 apiece.
Yeah, no, I could get with that. Absolutely. They're just too good of a team. They're too good of a team.
The runner-up in the Super Bowl, and they're not missing much.
Definitely not. And I mean, next year might be a different story as they start to have to pay people. But this is probably their next best chance, right? Now, obviously, they've been knocking on the door for the last 5 years anyway, right? They were in 2 different Super Bowls, been in 4 championship games. I mean, they're there. That being said, at the end of this season, some things start to change. So they're going to have to maximize their opportunities anyway. And of course, if you are watching alongside us, you can hit the QR code on the screen. You can do all the bets we are talking about. You get up to 125% of your initial deposit. There is a 10% bet guarantee, and that 125 is up to your first 3 deposits. All right. Okay, that gets us halfway through. So we got the Hawks at the Patriots. We did talk about it a little bit at the beginning of the show. The Hawks are a 3.5-point favorite on the road, over under a 38.5, which lets you know that they don't think the Patriots are going to score. And, but ranking wise, it's the 20th versus the 24th. So this should be a tighter game than maybe that 3.5-point on the road number would indicate. But I do think that the Hawks look considerably better than they did in the first half of the first game. This is one where the Patriots defense is probably a little bit underrated, but their offense is not great. And I think that'll be the biggest difference in this game.
Yeah, Seattle, whether they're on the road or not, I mean, not that it's not as if New England's played great in the snow, because we know that without Tom Brady, they've been relatively mush, considering. But you look at Seattle being on the road, they're familiar with the area, they're familiar with the weather, they understand what's going on, they're familiar with the foe. Again, different places, but could be similar schemes. Don't know. But I like Seattle. I like Seattle's chances on the road against a team who's just trying to settle into finding out who they have and the personnel groupings and the schemes and, quarterback play. And what do those look like, especially in short yardage situations, as I mentioned earlier. So I think Seattle ends up getting the win. It's not going to be a big, insurmountable lead, but it's going to be significant enough to get that win. I think Seattle pulls off an upset in New England, and I'm probably going to err on the side of maybe a field goal to win this one.
Well, the Hawks are actually favored on the road in this one.
Well, then they're going to go by 7.
I like it. All right, we got the Jets at the Titans. Jets are 4-point favorites, over under a 41. Now, the Jets, man, the Jets are like the Browns. The roster, you're like, here we go. I mean, they should win some games, and then they do Jets things and find ways to mess it up. Now, the Jets will get right in this game because the Titans are terrible. So, I mean, as much as the Jets find ways to lose games, they're going to win this one. They're a 4-point favorite. I think they probably win by a touchdown here. Again, the Titans are they're bad enough that most teams are going to beat them up.
Probably. I was a fan of Will Levis. I was at one point, and then Tennessee drafted him, and then, well, that stopped that action altogether. Facing a very formidable defense, who and the Jets are no chumps defensively. They just need to get their act together in those defensive stops. We're talking press coverage. We're talking some zone when they need to switch up. The Titans aren't really a threat in the passing game. They could surprise people, but I just don't think they have it, at least not this week, against the Jets defense that still ranks relatively high when you're talking about points allowed. But against a 49ers team who clearly is firing on all cylinders, as we just mentioned, there's certainly a lot to take into consideration now that you have Aaron Rodgers, the guy's a 4-time NFL MVP, coming off a very horrific ACL, now coming back into the fold, where I don't know that he's completely comfortable. I've seen a lot of handoffs. I see a lot of short yardage stuff. He did drop the ball downfield to a wide receiver with a couple misses, a little miscues from him. So I don't know that he's the same quarterback, but again, it's week 1, not quite week 2.
So would you I would attribute that to the fact that he didn't take a single snap in preseason. I mean, so timing's going to be off with receivers. Some of those receivers aren't going to be used to the fact that he just launches rockets even if he's close to you. You watched Garrett Wilson, who's a sure-handed receiver, drop, I think, 3 different balls. They hit him square in the hands. But, Aaron Rodgers, a lot like Brett Favre, is you could be, 10 feet away and he's still throwing it as hard as he can throw it. So, I mean, you gotta adjust to the way that he throws the ball a little bit, and having no real reps in live action with Rodgers is a huge problem. So, I mean, I don't think they're as bad as they looked in week 1. It's another scenario where it was week 1, but offensive line, didn't look good. So that is a major concern to me. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, again, one of those things where I'm going to see more from Aaron Rodgers from under center than just handing off and handing off and handing off. I want to see him step into a throw. I just don't think he's comfortable enough. And you mentioned the fact that he didn't get a lot of work in the preseason, didn't get a lot of work during training camp. I'll be honest with you. I think Aaron Rodgers is kind of mailing this one in, to be honest. But again, it's just week 1, so we don't have to ask him about being vaccinated, because he'll confuse that with being inoculated. So,
I mean, I feel like they might be from, the end zone, which is why they haven't made it.
All babies were born in the end zone. He just hasn't had that one yet.
Absolutely. So now we have the last early game of Sunday. It was a pretty big early game selection actually this weekend, but the last one to start out the early time slot is Giants at Commanders, and
Yeah, I don't know. I am still shocked about that one. I'll be perfectly honest with you. And I think the shocking thing about it, when you look at the Commanders and Jane Daniels and what he's done during during training camp, he looked good. He's a tough, gritty guy. He's tall. He's effective. He certainly knows what to do with the ball. What very interestingly enough is that he does have those weapons offensively, and he's going to have to try to figure out in year one whether or not he's going to make a huge run or he's not going to make a run at all. And I think that if you hand it off in any given situation, looking at short yardage, may find themselves in the end zone more early and often, especially in that part of the field. On the other side of the field, you look at the New York Giants and you think to yourself, man, can Daniel Jones be any worse? Can Duke produce quarterbacks? I don't know. I would tend to say probably not. Why? Because they're academic. They're not football gurus. They don't study the game like a Jaden Daniels does. And of course, I have to give a shout out to Jaden Daniels from my hometown of San Bernardino, California. You joined us here. Apparently, we had a technical issue with Bo, but Bo will be back momentarily. In the interim, we look at the New York football Giants, and I think to myself, this team is absolutely horrible. I don't know how horrible of a team they'll actually look at when you're talking about midseason play. They don't have a chance to throw in that white towel. They have the opportunity to actually play. I just don't know how long you stick with your quarterback situation without looking at an alternative, without even thinking about drafting alternative. Yeah, they're overpaying him, and he knows that, and we all recognize that Daniel Jones is just who Daniel Jones is, and who everybody thought Daniel Jones is certainly that guy. So sad, but rest assured, I think Daniel Jones is a guy who clearly is who we thought he was. I hate to use that euphemism, but it's true. And you look at him and you think to yourself, man, is he going to be that kind of guy? Is he going to really make an effort down the field? And Bo's back with us here, talking Giants, Commanders, and Daniel Jones, and the fact that he continually finds a way to be horrible. And I just don't know that he's going to be that guy moving forward for the New York Giants, at least from a quarterback perspective. What are your thoughts about that, Bo, when you're talking about Daniel Jones and his lackluster play and his inability to be that guy moving forward for the New York Jets under center? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I look at the Commanders, and there's just way too much offense. They do have the weaponry. I'm taking the Commanders. I'm taking the Commanders here, and I'm going off a leaf because of what I've seen in the latter part of their Week 1 loss, right? Because we look at Jay Daniels, we know how tough he is, and I think that he's the answer in Washington. There is no doubt about it, because there is nobody else in Washington. Their backup quarterback situation is questionable at best. But I do like Jane Daniels in this game. I'm picking the Commanders in this win over a very, I would say, systemically bad football New York Giants team. Why? I don't think it's Brian Daboll who's at fault here for the New York Giants. I think it's more about the draft picks, the positioning, who they get, who they look for, and basically the acquisitions. And of course, Daniel Jones is overpaid, as Bo welcomes himself back into his show.
Man, I had a power surge and it knocked the router out.
Oh, man. I'm telling you, it's happened nationwide. But speaking of power and the lack thereof, New York is just going to go down in flames. I just don't know that they're going to be the football Giants that we want them to be, as fans would hope for them to be. I just think, again, too much Commanders, too early, too often, and they have playmakers, and of course the guy under center, Jane Daniels, for Washington.
Yeah, no question. And I agree with you there. Commanders are actually only a 1.5 point favorite at home, which is wild to me when you think Daniel Jones has more pick sixes than touchdown passes in the last year and a half. So, it doesn't make you feel good about it. I have the Commanders at home easily covering. 1.5 points seems ridiculous to me for a Giants team that is bad on all fronts, an offensive line that is determined to kill Daniel Jones, a coach that wants to let it happen. I would imagine that by week 5, we see Drew Lock starting for these New York Giants.
Yeah, and again, one of those situations where you don't have a lot of depth, but I do like what I've seen from Drew Lock when he was in Seattle, speaking of the Seahawks, and what he brings, which is he recognizes coverages, and he's getting better. He's one of those slow starters we've seen Sam Darnold do when he was drafted by the New York Jets. That was a failed attempt, not at Sam Darnold, but it was a franchise problem. It was a decision-making problem. And they didn't surround him with the guys that he needed to win, right? I didn't want to see Sam Darnold go down like another itchy quarterback in Mark Sanchez. And he's not known as butt fumble. Mark is, but,
To be fair, though, Mark Sanchez did at least get to a couple of AFC championship games.
He did. But at the same token, this is an opportunity where, you have Drew Lock, who's now on his third team, I believe, who will have the opportunity, drafted by the Broncos, played last year in Seattle, and now his third team in New York. I think it's prime time to get Drew Lock out there and sit Daniel Jones and say, look, we paid you big money. It's either put up or shut up, and we're going to send you out packing. Because, again, Duke's known for academia, not known for quarterbacks.
Well, and for the Giants, they have the advantage of the fact that this offseason is also the out on Daniel Jones' contract. So if they don't like what they see this year, they can move on with a really minimal cap hit this next season from him. So there's a good shot that by midseason, and I think even sooner, especially if we see anything like we saw week 1, that Daniel Jones is his time is over in New York.
He is who we thought he was.
That's exactly right. Moving into the Sunday afternoon games, we have the Rams at the Cards. This one is interesting in the way that the Cards have a 1-point advantage in this game. Now, you generally get 3 points from Vegas if you're the home team, so they still kind of think the Rams will win. But I definitely have the Rams coming in and beating up on the Cards, especially after the press conference where you have the comment of, yeah, I understand Marvin Harrison Jr. was open, but it's not my job to get him the ball. And I'm pretty sure Kyler Murray's job is exactly to get the ball to wide open receivers.
You're absolutely right. But one thing that everybody should know, and it's kind of a bugaboo, right? We look at Kyler Murray and it's whining and crying about a new contract and blah, blah, blah. And it just became a big circus, scrubbed the Cardinals from his social and all that. It's just, it's immaturity. And I don't believe that Kyler Murray is the guy that the Cardinals really need to have, but he did peak up on the injury report. I think it was a knee, perhaps something relatively mild. So that may affect his scrambling capability. But look, on the other side, let's be honest with you and honest with the audience, that the offensive line for the Rams, it's patchwork at best. We're talking Patch Adams times 7, right? Because you need that many guys to rotate in and out in order to be effective. Matthew Stafford didn't have the protection, okay? So, and he's a pure pocket passer. There's no question, no doubt about it in my mind. Can he scramble? Yes. Does he? No. Why? Because he has an offensive line to do it, right? We haven't seen a great offensive line since Andrew Whitworth was on that roster and he was playing on that line in a Super Bowl run. And he played that throughout his entire career. I mean, he's just been that good. I met him last year at Dallas Cowboys training camp. And Andrew is a top-notch guy altogether, and he knows his stuff. And could he be needed on this team? Absolutely. Will he take the phone call? Not likely. So I just don't see it happening. No, he's making too much money not playing. But with that being said, it's still taking the Rams, but it's a slim margin, at least for me. And of course, Vegas probably sees that as well. But I'm taking the Rams in a I would say, if not a 3-point field goal win for the dub, maybe a touchdown lead, but probably not much more than that.
Yeah, fortunately, all we have to do is, all they need to do is win outright. right? Because the Cards are a 1-point favorite. And I think that's the case. I'm with you there. I do think it's probably going to be a field goal. The Rams are the better team. The offensive line is questionable at best, but they have a nice complement of receivers. And although Puka, I believe, is still banged up, Cooper Kupp really showed up week 1. And so, I think the Rams definitely get this road win here. The Cards, I mean, they're in some trouble this year. They're not going to be a great team. I think they're probably a little bit undervalued, but a lot of places, a lot of talking heads have them as a 4, maybe a 5-win team. I do think they're probably more like a 6-win team, but even still, this probably isn't one of those wins. Besides, they like to lose games at home.
yeah, exactly. And they love losing games, and it's going to be another year for the Arizona Cardinals on the losing side. So, yeah, I'm definitely taking the Rams in this one.
Thanks for stopping in, Whit. So, all right, we got the last afternoon game. We got the Bengals at KC. KC is a 5.5-point favorite, over under 48. And I think that line is probably actually too small. I think KC can inflict some serious damage on this Bengals team that, again, doesn't play a lot of defense. And I didn't like anything I saw out of their offense week 1. So I'm going to go with KC cruises here and, easily covers that spread. And realistically, I think the over-under, I'm taking the over. 48 points doesn't seem like enough for these two teams.
No, I the Chiefs are on the roll. The arrowheads will be flying in the Bengals' directions, and I mean that, taking those arrowheads into the end zone. I'm taking the Chiefs on this one. I just don't think that the Bengals can put it together. Yeah, they have a slow start, and everybody wants to talk about it. And historically, they've had a slow start. But with that being said, and to put this in real context, I just don't think the Bengals have a chance against Kansas City. And we're talking, despite what history may indicate, this is not the same Bengals team that faced them in the AFC Championship game. So let's be clear on that. I just think Chiefs too early, too often. It's going to be at least a 2 to 3 touchdown lead and a win for Kansas City at home.
Absolutely. Moving into Sunday Night Football, we got the Bears at the Texans. Texans are a 6.5-point favorite. That feels about right. I think the Texans win by a touchdown. This Bears team won last week, but not because of anything that offense did. And, I'm not a Caleb Williams believer, but man, if you were, you have to be feeling a little bit different after that last game. Their defense obviously wins them the game for them. That won't be the case against the Texans. So I got the Texans at home cruising.
Another SE quarterback, Caleb Williams, who did fabulous things, showed his signs of immaturity in college. Let's just call it what it is, crying behind a towel because they lost. And, you can poke all the fun you want at that one for the listening audience or viewing audience or both. I think the Bears are more impressed about their defense, but I think they're also impressed about how Caleb Williams is handling this newfound fame. And not only that, but how he handles himself on the field and in the locker room. I'm not a Caleb Williams bandwagoner, but I will say this. Out of all of the QBs to come out of SC, because we're going to be watching at least 2 of them play this weekend, yep. I think the Bears will give the Texans an early rough in the onset of this game. They're going to prevent a lot of deep passes from C.J. Stroud, but then C.J. will find his method and destroy the Bears. I don't believe that they have enough in the Bears secondary. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the pass from Caleb Williams, and I just don't see them being able to rough up and get in the backfield of C.J. Stroud to make him pay at any given point he has a football in his hand. So I'm going to take the Texans here. I would say at least the 2 touchdown lead. Maybe that's a little too generous, but that's where I stand, and the Texans get the dub.
Absolutely. And of course, Monday Night Football. This is not going to be a good game based on what we saw out of the Falcons. They travel to Philly. Philly is a 6.5-point favorite. And this is a game where if the Falcons play anything like they did in week 1, this is about to be a absolute beatdown. 6.5 points is not enough, but I'll take the Eagles to cover. I have some real questions about this Falcons team that I thought was going to be really good.
Well, I had some questions too, especially when you play a Steelers team who didn't even have an identity at quarterback in the offseason until they acquired Russell Wilson and Justin Fields from the aforementioned Bears conversation, right? And Russell Wilson being paid an exorbitant amount of money by the Denver Broncos, so they'll face on Sunday at Mile High or Empower Field or wherever you want to call it nowadays. But I think the Falcons just basically lost where they were going, and Kirk Cousins turned into the same old Kirk Cousins. He showed his ugly head in Minnesota, and he's showing his ugly head with the Falcons, and I don't think that's going to change. He's a good salesman, I'll tell you that much, but he's not selling me on this, especially when you're playing at Lincoln Financial against the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think the Falcons cover much of anything, much less a fire in the corner of a room with a blanket. I think that you look at Philadelphia, there's some things to like, but some things to really not like. I didn't like the yards from scrimmage from Philadelphia. I think in a better scheme, Saquon could have maybe acquired a lot more yards per carry, maybe even some more touchdowns. But to be honest with you, that defense for Atlanta is going to have to stiffen up quick, early and often, and get to Jalen Hurts, because if they don't, he will make you pay. And to be honest with you, being the quarterback that Jalen Hurts, now the runner-up from another Super Bowl, I think the Eagles are going to cover this easily. I don't think the Falcons have a chance. I'm taking the Eagles here by at least a touchdown, and I say that because the Falcons find a way to stifle them later in the fourth quarter, disabling them from getting a 2-touchdown lead.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. The Falcons, as it sits today, if they have a couple more games like they did in week 1, we're going to see Penix starting by week 6.
Easily. And I said that when they drafted Michael Penix, and the fact that Kirk Cousins was all butthurt, the fact that they drafted Michael Penix, he should look in the mirror and say, well, this is one of the reasons why we lost the week 1 game against Pittsburgh, because of the interceptions, because of the miscues. Yeah, he made some decent throws, but I mean, Michael Penix, one of the most accurate FBS quarterbacks in college football. Really?
I mean, he's the guy I thought was the most pro-ready coming into this draft.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you could have the same argument from what happened last year between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Let's think about that one. All the hype was on Bryce Young. People were on the bandwagon for Bryce Young. Well, where's Bryce Young at? Oh, wait. Didn't even get it in the playoffs. Who did? CJ Stroud. The guy they did not talk about. The guy, well, he could go 1-2, more likely 2. Look, the talking heads buzzed. I remember 2018 when Lamar Jackson was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens in the 32nd in round 1 by the Baltimore Ravens, and people were saying, "Oh, he's just going to be drafted by as a wide receiver. He's just going to be a guy who's just going to take a placeholder, but he'll never be a starting quarterback." Wait. 2 NFL MVPs later, and where is he at exactly? So again, one of those things where you got to believe it when you see it, and you can't believe everything on paper. And I don't think the Falcons are as good on paper as they probably should be on the field. So again, one of those things where you question quarterback play, and I question Kirk Cousins. I question the offensive line play as well as the quarterback play for Cincinnati. You look at the Cardinals play with Kyler Murray under center. Matthew Stafford, again, offensive line play. It's like a tic-tac-toe game. You don't know who's going to win. It could be the X's or the O's. But right now, there's a lot of teams and coaches that are on hot seats early in week 1, and it could get even hotter if they lose again in week 2.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That brings us to the top of the show. Rudy, let everybody know where they can find you.
You can find me anywhere. You find me on Instagram, Rudy R. Reyes, on X, or formerly known as Twitter, at Rude Dog Reyes. You can go to the RudeDogShow.com, or if you're in the Central Valley, or if you want to stream it online, you go to Fox26.com, and I'll be reporting live news from that station upcoming. So stay tuned for all that good stuff. And of course, the beard that you're looking at will be the thing of the past, because the fall season is upon us, and you know as well as I do, camera time means shave time, except for today.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Perfect. So if you're watching here on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. If you're watching on Roku TV, stay tuned for the next hour. Other than that, for myself, for Rudy, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.